Good day to all of you children. In this video, we will take up revision of chapter of relations and functions, chapter 2 of your 11th maths. You already know now what is set theory. So let us begin. What will be a relation? What we will call a relation? And before going on to relations, we will have to see what is an ordered pair. Children, if A and B are two non-empty sets, supposedly A contains elements A and B B contains elements 1 and 2, then A cross B is called cross product of A and B या Cartesian product of A and B. So A cross B is called cross product of A and B or Cartesian product of A and B. And what are the elements of A cross B? This is also a set actually, and its elements are, see, A cross B. So I will take up elements of A first and then elements of B. I will have A1, A2, B1, B2. A is first, B is first. I will first write the element of set A, associate it with all the elements of B one by one. A1, A2, then I will take up the next element of A, associate this element with each and every element of set B, B1, B2. So what answers I get? I will write it in ordered pair form. This is an ordered pair, and about ordered pair you have already seen in your class 9 and 10 in geometry, coordinate geometry, when you were writing the point xy as 1 and 2. So this is nothing but geometric meaning. This ordered pair means what? Geometrically it means a point in the plane where the first value is the x coordinate of the point and the second value is the y coordinate of the point. So you have to think that when we take A cross B, we get ordered pairs, and geometric meaning of ordered pairs is that every ordered pair will be a point in the xy plane, just like 2 1 2 0 0 minus 1 0 and so many. So what is the meaning of this ordered pair? What is the geometric meaning? I told you it is nothing but an ordered pair, and ordered pair means the order is important. The first will be always x and the second will be always y coordinate. First element will come from A and second element will come from B. Order is important. Therefore, ordered pair, pair means two. There are two elements, A and 1. Therefore, pair, an ordered pair because A is first, 1 is second. So, A1, then A2. This is one element. These are not two elements. This is one element of a set. This is second element. Then B1 and B2. These are the four elements of A cross B. If I want to write B cross A, so first I will write elements of B and then of A. So first I take element of B, associate it with every element of A. So 1A, 1B. Then I take up next element of B, I associate it with every element of A, 2A, 2B. So this becomes 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, like this. Now children, you can make out that A cross B is not equal to B cross A, because this is also a set and this is also a set. This set has got 4 elements, 1, 2, 3, 4. This set also has got 4 elements, 1, 2, 3, 4. But the elements are not same because A1 and 1A, they are not same. Because in A1, A is first, 1 is second. In 1A, A1 is first, A is second. Positions of A and 1 are interchanged. So just like, actually these are points of a plane. Just like 2, 3 and 3, 2 cannot be the same point. These two will be different points in a plane if you plot them. So similarly, A1 is not equal to 1A. So these two are different elements. So please remember, A cross B and B cross A, they are not same sets. They are different sets. They need not be same sets, as you can see, because their elements are not matching. So how to get A cross B and B cross A, you have understood. Now children, number of elements in A cross B will be how much? That also let us check out. Number of elements in A cross B that will be number of elements in A, number of elements in B. So that will be, how many elements were there in A? 2. How many elements in B? 2. So that is 4. Therefore, number of elements in A cross B is 4. What will be number of elements in B cross A? That will be NB into NA. है ना? NA cross B अगर NA NB है तो what will be NB cross A? Sorry, what will be NB cross A? NB into NA. NB means how many? 2 into 2, and that is also 4. So please remember, for any two given sets A and B, how to get NA cross B, number of elements in A cross B, how to get it? That will be NA into NB, number of elements of A into number of elements of B, and that will also be equal to number of elements of B cross A. Please understand nicely. Okay? And now, please remember, A cross A in short is written as A square. A cross A in short will be written as A3. And like that, A cross A cross A cross A n times. If we are taking cross product of A n times, so in short it can be written as A raised to n. This is a symbolic representation. You may not write A so many times. Just an will mean we have taken cross product A of how many times? N times. N times we have taken cross product of A, that will be an. In short, we can write like this. This does not mean A raised to n. Please don't make mistake. This is not power and indices. This is just a notation to write like this, to understand. So AQ means A cross A cross A like this. If A is the set of real numbers, so A cross A will mean R cross R, and that will be R square. And A cross A cross A will be R cross R, and that will be R cube. So R cube means R cross R, and R square means R cross R. Like this you have to think. So I told you how to take A cross B and how to take B cross A. We understood A cross B is not equal to B cross A. And we understood how to get the number of elements of A cross B, that will be number of elements of A into number of elements of B. And please remember, if any of these is a null set, then whichever is a null set, number of elements will be 0. So supposing A is null set, we assume, suppose A is null set. Okay, so what are the number of elements of A? That will be 0. So what will be number of elements of A cross B? That will be NA into NB, and that will be 0. And therefore number of elements in B cross A also will be 0. So A cross B will have no ordered pair, and B cross A also will have no ordered pair. They will be empty sets. So out of A and B, if any one of the sets is null set, void set, empty set, then A cross B also will be an void set. So this was just introduction about ordered pairs. One more thing I want to tell you, children. I will write over here. If xy is equal to mn, if two ordered pairs are equal, so that can happen only when implies implied by, means from this I will get this statement, and from this statement I will get this statement. It means x is equal to m, and this and is very important, and y equal to n. That means both x coordinates should be equal and both y coordinates should be equal. Only then the points can be same points. This is geometric meaning. So if two ordered pairs are equal, that means first element equal to first element and second element equal to second element. So first element should be equal, x and n, and then second element should be equal. If x is equal to m and y equal to n, then only the ordered pair xy will be equal to ordered pair mn. Please remember. Then one more thing you have to understand. Okay, please copy down, and I'll wait for you. Please copy down. I'll wait for you for 2 minutes. Please copy. So if you have copied this, then I can proceed. You can pause, children, on your own, and you can copy. I don't waste your time. One very important formula you have to remember that will be very helpful to you. Number of elements of A cross B intersection B cross A that is equal to number of elements of A intersection B whole square. So n A cross B intersection B cross A, number of elements common to B cross A and A cross B, that will be equal to the number of elements common to A and B and their square. What I mean to say is that supposedly A is a set 1, 2, 3 and B is a set 2, 3, 4. What will be A cross B? A cross B will be, first I take one element, connect with these three, then 2, connect with these three, and then 3, connect with these three. So 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, 3, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4. These will be the elements. 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, 3, 2, 3, 3, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What will be B cross A? I have to take first element from here. 2 with all these 3. 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3. 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 3, like this. So 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3. Then 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 3. Then 4, 1, 4, 2, and 4, 3. Yes? Now let us see which are the common elements. 1, 2 I can see over here. Is 1, 2 present? No. 1, 3 is there? No. 1, 4? No. 2, 2? Yes, it is there. 2, 3? Yes, it is there. 2, 4? It is there? No. 3, 2 is there? Yes, 3, 2. 3, 3 is there. 3, 4 is not there. How many elements are common, children? 1, 2, 3, 4. So A cross B intersection B cross A is what? 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, and 3, 3. Yes, these 4 elements. What is the number of A cross B intersection B cross A? What is the number? That is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. What is A intersection B? How many elements are there in A intersection B? They are 2 and 3. Only 2 elements are common. So what is the number of elements in A intersection B? That is 2. So what is the square of this? Square of this will be how much? 4. So we can see number of elements in A cross B intersection B cross A is same as number of elements in A intersection B square. So please remember this formula. This is very, very important for ordered pairs. Please pause and copy, children. Then we go to the next step. This was about ordered pairs. Now, children, we have to think about relations. What is a relation? So if A and B are two non-empty sets, A is not a null set and B is also not a null set. If A and B are two non-empty sets, then any subset of A cross B, if R is a subset of A cross B, then R is called relation from A to B, and if R is subset of B cross A, then R is called relation from B to A. So if it is A cross B, it is called relation from A to B, and if it is subset of B cross A, then it is called relation from B to A. If R is a subset of A cross A, means both the sets are same, then R is called relation on A. If R is subset of B cross B, then R is called relation on B, like this you have to think. So relation from A to B will be what? It will be any subset of A cross B. Relation from B to A will be what? Any subset of B cross A. Relation on A means subset of A cross A. Relation on B means subset of B cross B. If A is a set, supposedly A is a set AB and B is a set 1, 2, 3, then any subset of A cross B. See, what can be A cross B? Or let me write it like this. This is supposing 1 and 2 only. So what will be A cross B? A cross B will be A1, A2, B1 and B2. That is A cross B. How many subsets A cross B has got? So R1 null set. Null set is subset of every set. Second relation can be this set. Third relation can be A2. Any subset of A cross B. You know how to make subsets. R4, fourth relation can be B1. Fifth relation can be B2. Sixth relation can be A1, A2. I take 2 now. R7 can be A1, B1. R8, that can be A1, B2. R9 can be A2, B1. R10 can be A2, B2. Okay. Then R11 B1, B2, like this. Then we can have, I'll write over here for you, R13, 13th relation. I took up two elements, so I take up 3, 3. So R13 can be A1, A2, B1. R14 can be, see I left out B2, now I left B1, A1, A2, B2. Then R15 can be, see I left out first B2, B1 for B2 we left out here. Here we got B1, then I will got A2. So that will be A1, B1 and B2. And R16 can be, now I got A1. So that will be A2, B1, B2. For 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This will be 12. This will be 13. This will be 14. And this will be 15. And then finally, R16 will be all the 4 elements, means full A cross B. So that I can write as A cross B. I take up all the 4 elements. So these are the 16 relations possible with set A and set B. First you find out A cross B and then you start constructing subsets. So each one subset will be called one relation. Each one subset will be called one relation. This is a typical relation and this is also a very special relation for us. This is called a void relation. Void relation or null relation or empty relation. And this is called a universal relation. Universal because it contains all elements of A cross B. Therefore, full A cross B is called universal relation. And this is called void relation, null relation or empty relation. So like this, if A and B sets are given to me, I construct first A cross B and then I construct all its subsets. So I get 16 relations possible. So children, please remember, now from this example you can make out, if number of elements in A is P and number of elements in B is Q, what will be number of elements in A cross B? That you know it will be PQ, right? NA into NB PQ. So if A cross B has got PQ elements, how many subsets we can make? Whatever subsets we can make of A cross B. Just like over here A cross B had 4 elements. We created 16 subsets. because there were 4 elements in A cross B. So if A cross B has got PQ elements, how many subsets A cross B can have? 2 raised to PQ, you know that from set theory. So number of subsets of A cross B will be 2 raised to PQ. So number of subsets of A cross B will be 2 raised to PQ. Therefore, number of relations from A to B will be 2 raised to PQ, because whatever are the number of subsets of A cross B, that will be the number of relations from A to B. Whatever is the number of subsets of A cross B, that will be the number of relations from A to B, because A cross B had 4 elements, 2 raised to 4 is 16, and we can easily construct 16 relations like this. So if A has got P elements and B has got Q elements, how many relations we can make? We can make 2 raised to PQ relations from A to B, and from B to A also we can make 2 raised to PQ relation, because number of elements of A cross B and number of elements of B cross A will be same, that will be PQ. So if A cross B has got PQ elements, B cross A also will have PQ elements, and therefore number of subsets of B cross A also will be 2 raised to PQ, and therefore number of relations from B to A also will be 2 raised to PQ. So how to get a relation that I told you? Please copy this so that I can proceed. Please copy this so that I can proceed. You can make your notes quickly for last minute revision. Okay. See children, I have written all the relations over there. If I pick up this relation, supposing R14. So what is R14 relation? See. R14 relation, A connects with 1, B connects with 1. So A connects with 1, B connects with 1, and B connects with 2. So B connects with 2, that is the point. This is R14 relation. We write like this. In this set, in this figure, we write elements of A because it is A cross B. So on the left side, we write elements of A. On the right side, we write elements of B. And then we see which element of this set is connecting with this element of this. So A connects with 1 in R114, B connects with 1 and B connects with 2, like this. And if you see this relation, supposing you take up this relation R6, so A1 and A2. So I am drawing like this, R6, over here A connects with 1 and A connects with 2, like this. So children, please remember, these elements, when we make a relation, when we draw arrow diagram like this is called arrow diagram representation of a relation. Arrow diagram representation of a relation. On the left side in the figure, we write elements of the first set. In the second diagram, in the second oval shape, we write elements of the second set, and then we see in the relation, like in R6, A connects with 1, A connects with 2. So A connects with 1, A connects with 2. Over here, A connects with 1, B corresponds to 1, B corresponds to 2. We draw arrows like this from first set to second set. Now children, remember, whatever answers are there over here, they are called images. So 1 and 2 are images. 1 and 2 are images. Here also 1 and 2 are images. These things are pre-images. So A and B, they are pre-images. Here A is pre-image. We have to think like this. So elements of this set are images and elements of this set are pre-images. So set of collection of images, this will form the range. This will form the range of the relation. And this will form the domain of the relation. So I am talking about what is the range and what is the domain of a relation. Domain, D-O-M-A-I-N. So how to get domain and how to get range, please understand. First, to look at your relation, R14th relation. A corresponds to 1, B corresponds to 1, B corresponds to 2. So A corresponds to 1, B corresponds to 1, B corresponds to 2. In R6, what it was? A to 1, A to 2. So So A1, A2 we wrote like this. So these are the set of images that will form the range. These are the set of pre-images that will form the domain. And codomain will be set B. This set we are having R a subset of A cross B. This will be always the codomain of the relation. This set B. So please understand, children, how do we get codomain of the relation? How do we get range of the relation? How do we get domain of the relation? When R is subset of A cross B, B will be always codomain. But A will always not be the domain, because see over here in this relation domain will be what? A and B. So I write like this. Range of relation 14, I will write like this. Range of relation 14, like this I write. Range of relation. What is the range? 1, 2. Domain of relation 14 will be pre-images, that will be AB. And in this case, fortunately, your set A was also AB. So you may think a domain and the first set are same, but always it is not like this. Always it is not like this. See, in this case, 1 and 2 are images. So range of R6 is 1, 2. And domain of R6, this is R6 relation. Domain is the pre-image. What is it? Only A. But what was the set A? AB. So domain of the relation and the first set A, they may always not be equal, because A is AB, whereas in this relation domain is only A. So domain and A need not be always equal, but codomain always will be the second set for any relation. Any relation, for all the relations obtained from A cross B. For all the relations obtained from A cross B, codomain will be always the second set, but the first set always need not be the domain. We will have to see which elements are obtained, which is corresponding. Here only A was corresponding to 1 and 2. If you take this relation R4, supposing, let us draw, if we take R4, so it is B corresponding to 1. So what is the images? Only 1. So what is the range of R4? That is only 1. What is the domain of R4? Domain of R4 is only B. So range is only 1, whereas codomain is 1, 2. So range is not equal to codomain of R4, and your domain is not equal to set A, which is equal to B. Please understand. So range is always not equal to codomain. Sometimes it may be equal. Here range was AB and the range was 1, 2, and codomain also was 1, 2. See, B is 1, 2. So range is 1, 2 and codomain is also 1, 2. Here range is 1, 2, again codomain is 1, 2. So in this case, the range is equal to codomain. Range is equal to codomain. But here range is not equal to codomain, it is not equal to B. But yes, one thing is very sure, that range will be subset of this set B, because range elements we will get from the right side set only, from this set only, and here are elements of B. You have to pick up some elements of B, like in this we picked up 1, 2, in this we picked up 1, 2, in this we picked up only 1. So one thing is very clear to us, that range of the relation will be always subset of codomain of the function, and domain of the relation will be always subset of the first set A. I can write like this, the first set of A cross B. You can think like this. So range will be always subset of codomain, and domain of relation will be always subset of the first set of A cross B. First set of A cross B means A, like this you have to think. So I write over here, domain always subset of A. You can think like this, where A is coming from A cross B. So range will be always subset of codomain, and domain will be always subset of the first set A cross B. A जो है first set है, उसका subset रहेगा आपका domain. The left set will be called domain. This will be the domain, which may not be equal to A. Which may not be equal to A, because in this the domain is B, it is not equal to A. Range will come from here. Range is only 1, which may not be equal to the codomain. But yes, the range will be subset of B, the second set, codomain, and the domain will be subset of first set of A cross B, like this you think. So how to get the range, how to get the pre-images, how to get the images, what is the meaning of pre-images, what is the meaning of images, I told you. Please pause and copy, children, then I teach you more things. Please pause and copy. So let us take up some examples, children, to understand again. Supposing A is a set 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and B is a set 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. R is a subset of A cross B, and XY element belong to R such that R is equal to, R contains an element XY where Y will be X plus 1. So this relation will contain elements XY, ordered pairs XY such that Y will be X plus 1. Now remember, because R is subset of A cross B and R is XY belongs to R, element XY belongs to R, so X will come from A and Y will come from B. X will come from A, Y will come from B. Supposing this way we have defined R, supposing we have defined this way, okay, what should be the relation between X and Y? Y should be X plus 1. So what elements can come in R? I will think like this. First pick up 1. So if I write X as 1, first will be X then Y. If I take X as 1 from here, X to be taken from here and Y to be taken from here. If X is 1, Y will be how much? 2. 2 is present over here. So 1, 2 can come in this set, in this relation. When I keep X as 2, Y will be 3. 3 is present. So when X will be 2, Y will be 3. That is okay. When I take X as 3, so Y will be 4. 3, 4 will come. If I take X as 4, then Y will be 4 plus 1, 5. So 4, 5 can come. If I take this as 5, then it will be 6. But 6 is not present over here. So 5, 6 cannot come. So this is your R. 5, 6 cannot come over here because Y equal to 6 is not available. Y has to come from this set. So R contains only these 4 elements. Now let us see. R is a relation. Okay. So 1 corresponds to 2. 2 corresponds to 3. 3 corresponds to 4. And 4 corresponds to 5. Like this we are having. I told you these are images. So range of the relation will be 2, 3, 4, 5. Domain of relation will be 1, 2, 3, 4. Codomain of relation will be the second set 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like this you think. What is the domain, what is the range, and what is the codomain? Like this we are thinking. Supposedly A is a set 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and B is equal to 3, 9 and 12 suppose. We say R is subset of A cross B. XY will belong to the relation R and R will be containing elements XY such that Y equal to 3x. So let us check what can be the elements of R. First I have to take X from here. This will contain X and from here Y. Because XY belongs to R, X from A, Y from B. If I take X as 1, what will be Y? Y will be 3. Can I take Y as 3? Yes, I can take. If I take X as 2, the next element, then Y will be 3 into 2, 6. 6 is not there, so 2 cannot come here. If I take X as 3, then Y equal to 3 into 3, 9. 9 is present, so 3, 9 can come. And then 4, 12 can come. But X 5, then 15 is not here, so 5, 15 cannot come. So R contains only these elements. So, what are the domain of R elements? The first elements are containing the domain. So 1, 3, 4. What is the range? 3, 9, 12. The second elements are the images. And what is the codomain? Codomain is the second set. Second set means 3, 9, 12. In this case, range and codomain are equal. So this way, children, any relation is given to you, you have to identify the elements first by looking at the relation between x and y. Then you have to think of the images, pre-images, range, domain, codomain, and everything. So that was about relations, children. Please pause and copy. Okay, after relations, children, quickly let us see what is a function. So just as relation is a subset of A cross B, where A and B are two non-empty sets. Similarly, again, if A and B are two non-empty sets, A is not a null set and B is also not a null set, then F is also a subset of A cross B. But every subset of A cross B will not be called a function. Every subset of A cross B can be called a relation, but every subset of A cross B will not be called a function. That means function is a special type of relation. See, children, if I take up an example like this, supposing there is one set and another set like this, this is the relation. Supposing there is A, B, C and 1, 2, 3. A corresponds to 1, A corresponds to 2, C corresponds to 3. So this is definitely a relation, or maybe I say that B corresponds to 2. So this is the relation because A corresponds to 1, A corresponds to 2, B2, C3. What will be R? Just let us see. R will be A1, A2, B2 and C3. This is a subset of A cross B. If A is taken as, supposing I take A as A, B, C and I take as B as 1, 2, 3. So this is subset of A cross B. Therefore, this is the relation. You can see these all elements will come under A cross B. But this relation is not a function because from the left hand side set, this element is corresponding to two different elements. So one of the criteria for a relation to be a function is that whatever elements are there in the left side set, no element should correspond to more than one element. Every element on the left side should correspond only to one element on the right side. No element should correspond to more than one element like A is doing in this case. So every element on the left side will correspond only to one element on the right side. Now, if I have a relation like this, supposing R is A1 and C2 supposing. So I take like this, so it will become like this. A corresponding to 1, C corresponding to 2 and 3 will be left out from here and B will be left out from here because in this side we had ABC and here we had 1, 2, 3. So on the left side set, this element is not corresponding to any element on the right side. Therefore, this is a relation but not a function. For a function, every element of left side should correspond only to one element on right side, and every element should correspond means every element should be connected with some or the other element on right side. So what is the definition? Every element of domain means set A, should correspond to unique and every, these two words are important. Every element of domain should correspond to unique element of codomain. Then only the relation can be called a function, otherwise no. So for a relation to become function, every element of domain, the left side set, should correspond to a unique element of the codomain. Now if I have a thing like this, supposing this is set A and this is set B, here there is A, B, C and here there is 1, 2, 3. A, B, C all are corresponding to 1. This is a function because every element is corresponding to one element only. See, A is corresponding to only one element. Is A corresponding to two elements? No. Is B corresponding to two elements? No. Is C corresponding to more than one element? No. So first thing is satisfied, should correspond to unique element, and every element should correspond. Is every element connected with some or the other element? Yes. Now you should not worry even if all are corresponding to the same element. That is not our concern. If some are left out over here, that is not our concern. Our concern is every element of domain. Arrow is coming out from every element? Yes. Should correspond to unique element. Is only one arrow coming out from every element? Yes. If every element will correspond to one element, then every element will have only one arrow coming out from it. An arrow should come out from every element in layman's language. Then it will be a function. Now tell me whether this will be a function or not. A to B, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. B corresponds to 2, C corresponds to 2, A corresponds to 1. Is it a function? Yes. Arrow is coming out from every element. And only one arrow is coming out from every element. From every element arrow should come out. And from every element only one arrow should come out. That is happening. So this is the function. Is this a function? A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. Is this a function? No, because arrow is not coming out from C. Therefore, this is not a function. Will this be a function? Will this be a function from A to B? A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. Supposing A corresponds to 2, B corresponds to 1, B corresponds to 3, and C corresponds to 2. Will this be a function? No, because from B two arrows are coming out. So this won't be a function. This won't be a function because no arrow coming out from C. This will be a function, no doubt. This will be a function, no doubt. This won't be a function. Like this you have to think. So when A and B are two non-empty sets and F is a subset of A cross B, under what condition a relation can become a function? I told you this is the condition. Every element of domain should correspond to a unique element of the codomain. Then the relation can be called a function, otherwise no. And in this case, when F is subset of A cross B, A will be called the domain of function and B will be called the codomain of the function. In relations we said this was not necessarily the domain of relation, but in functions the first set will be compulsorily domain and the second set will be called the codomain, compulsory. And as far the range is concerned, it is the same thing. If this is a function, then range will be 1. This is the images. These two are not connected, so leave out that. Here range will be 1. This is a function, range will be 1, 2. This is not a function, this is not a function. So again here range of F is 1, which is not equal to codomain of function. But range is definitely subset of codomain. Here also the range of the function is 1, 2, which is not equal to codomain, but definitely range is subset of codomain. Range can be equal also. It is not that the range will never be equal. If we think like this, if you have a thing like this, A to B, A, B, C, and 1, 2, 3. A corresponds to 1, B corresponds to 2, like this. So here range is 1, 2, 3, which is equal to codomain, and this is also a function. So range will be always equal to CF or subset of CF. In general, we can say range will be always subset of codomain of function, because even if it is equal, then also it is a subset definitely. It is subset still even if it is equal. So range will be always subset of codomain. The first set will be always the domain, the second set will be the codomain, and range will come from here. We think like this. Please pause and copy, children. Please pause and copy. See, if there is a function like a set A like A, B, C, and there is a set B 1, 2, 3, F is subset of A cross B. So this is the set A and this is the set B. A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. Supposing A corresponds to 2, B corresponds to 1 and C corresponds to 3. And this is the function f, a function from A to B. We will write like this. This is arrow diagram to represent the function, just like in case of relations. We will say f of A is 1. We keep A in f, we get answer as 2. F of A will be 2. We will say f of B will be 1. And f of C will be 3. We will say like this. These will be our notations. Now concentrate. F is 2, FB is 1, and FC is 3. These ABC are variables of the function. They are values of variables. Let me go like this. They are values of variable of function. So from this set, from the domain of the function, we get the values of the variable. So variable can have value A, B, C, and FA, FB, FC are called values of function. They are called values of function. So these are values of the function. FA is 2, FB is 1, FC is 3. These are values, even these are values, they are equal. So these are the values and these also are the values. So FA, FB, FC. So FA equal to 1, so we will say value of the function is 2 when the value of variable is A. Value of function is 1 when the value of variable is B. Value of function is 3 when the value of variable is C. We have to say like this. So when the value of variable is A, value of function is 2. When the value of variable is B, the value of function is 1. When the value of variable is C, the value of function is 3. Now what does the meaning of variable over here mean? So we think like this. Supposing f is a function from n to n, the set of natural numbers, just like over here, f is subset of A cross B. So I write over here first, f is a subset of n cross n. So here there is n and here there is n. Just as I connected A, B, C somehow with 1, 2, 3, the elements of domain and elements of codomain are connected by some formula. So supposing I take up x from here, any value, this can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. X can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the values of the variable. They are got from the domain. Let me call them by symbol x, where x can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The domain of the function is the set of natural numbers. It contains values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. Let me call them by the name x, where x can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like this. And supposing this is the function f, I will put x in f. F of x means x can be 1, 2, 3, whatever. The formula supposing fx is x square plus 1. So what is the job of this function? This is the formula of the function. What is the job of this function f? It has to pick up x from here, square it, and then add 1. That is the job of this function. To pick up any x from the domain, square it, and add 1 to it. So what will be f1? Just think, when I pick up 1 from here, it will be 1 square plus 1, that will be 2. What will be f2? 2 square plus 1, that will be 5. What will be f3? 3 square plus 1, 10, and so on. What will be f4? 4 square plus 1, 17. So this is 2, this is 5, this is 10 and 17. So 1 corresponds to 2, 2 corresponds to 5, 3 corresponds to 10, 4 to 17 and so on. It will continue. So 2 is the value of function when the value of variable is 1. 5 is the value of function when the value of variable is 2, matlab when x is 2. F is 10 when x is 3. F is 17 when x is 4. We have to think like this. So from here we will get x, and from here we will get f, the value of function. So elements of domain and codomain are connected by some formula. Like over here, I gave you a formula x square plus 1. So that connects the elements of domain and codomain. So elements of domain and codomain are connected by some formula. Like in relations also we saw y was x plus 1 or y was 3x. So there is a relation between this y and this x. Actually this is y. Because I told you x will come from here, y will come from here. This is nothing but y, the value of function. Like this we think. So what is the meaning of variable of the function? What is the meaning of value of function? What is the formula for function? What is the meaning of fa, fb, fc? They are values of function. I told you what is domain, what is codomain, what is range. All those things I told you. So this was just a brief introduction to what is a function. Please pause and copy, children. It will help you in revision. Now see children, once you have understood what is the meaning of function, you should have a very good grip on the graphs of functions. So I will just demonstrate before you how to draw graphs of different type of functions. Supposing I have got an equation like f is a function from R to R and fx is equal to x square plus 1. So from here we will get x and from here we will get fx, the values of f. So how to draw the graph of this function? Children, you know fx is x square plus 1. X square plus 1 means it is a quadratic expression. Its graph will be a parabola. You must have studied in class 10. So if I take some values of x, and usually children understand that if f is a function from R to R, R to R, I told you from here we will get x, the value of the variable. From here we will get the value of function fx. And you know that we have been telling that xy will belong to the relation or xy will belong to the function, because function is also a type of relation only. X comes from the first set and y comes from the second set. From here x comes and from here y comes. So many times fx is written as y. So we write fx equal to y. So fx equal to y means I am having y equal to x square plus 1. Wherever there will be fx, I can write it as y. So y or fx, they mean one and the same thing. The values obtained from the second set, the values of the function. So fx is the value of the function, and that we can call as y also. Because when we were talking of relation, we said ordered pair xy will belong to R or ordered pair xy will belong to function. So first element is x coming from the first set and the second element is y coming from the second set. Whatever values of second set are there, we are calling them fx, the values of the function. So fx can be called as y. So wherever there will be fx from now on, we will be calling it y. All the more important thing is the values of the domain of x are plotted on x-axis when we draw the graph. When we draw the graphs of the function, the values of the domain, values of x from the domain are plotted on x-axis, and values of fx, values of the function obtained from the second set are plotted on y-axis. Therefore, we say xy belong to R because first elements are plotted on x-axis and second elements are plotted on y-axis. So if y is x square plus 1, I can make some values. X is 0, plus minus 1, plus minus 2, plus minus 3. When x is 0, it will be 1. When x will be 1 or minus 1, it will be 2. For plus minus 2, it will be 5. For plus minus 3, it will be 10. So if I draw the graph, it will come like this. X-axis, y-axis. Here is fx and here is x. So 0, 1, 2, 3, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3. This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 0 point is there? No, 0, 1. So this point is not there. 0, 1, this point. X is 0, y is 1. 1 and 2. So 1 and 2. 1 and 2. Minus 1 and 2. Minus 1 and 2. 2 and 5. 2 and, so this is 5. So 2 and 5. And minus 2 and 5. So these are the points, so graph will come like this. So this will be your shape of parabola approximately. This will be the shape of the graph for fx equal to x square plus 1. Please understand. Similarly, if f is a function from R to R and fx is x cube, from here I get x, from here I get y, x and y, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 8, 27. fx is x cube, so when x will be 1, 1 cube will be 1. When x will be 2, 2 cube will be 8. When x will be 3, 3 cube will be 27. fx means y. This I told, fx and y are same. fx equal to x cube or y equal to x cube, one and the same thing. When x will be minus 1 cube is minus 1. When minus 2, it will be minus 8. When minus 3, it will be minus 27. So your graph will go like this, children. Please understand, we have to only have a rough sketch. We don't need to have a fair sketch, just a rough idea. 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on, and minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4 and so on. 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 8, somewhere here at a very great height. Minus 1, minus 1, minus 2 and somewhere minus 5, minus 6 like this. So your graph is going like this, children. Your graph will go like this. Okay, so this is the graph of y equal to x cube. Like this, you should learn to draw graphs. Few more I will draw. Please copy these. Please copy. I'll draw few more graphs for you to make you understand. So then, if you are having f is a function from R to R, and supposing fx is x plus 2, the fx means y, so y equal to x plus 2. The power of y is also 1, power of x is also 1. Equation like y equal to x plus 2, you know it is a linear equation in two variables x and y. Linear equation because both the powers of x and y is 1. We have drawn its graph in class 10 and 9 also in linear equations. So take some values x and y, 0 and 2. If you put x as 0, y will be 2. If you put 1, it will be 3, minus n and 1. We take 3 points. This is x. This is y. So here fx. So 1, 2, minus 1, minus 2. 1, 2 and 3. 0 and 2. 1 and 3. Minus 1 and 1. So this is your graph, a straight line as we expected. Rough sketch. So this is the graph of a straight line. fx equal to x plus 1. So we can make out, children, that if we have fx equal to ax plus b, where a and b are constant, y equal to ax plus b. This is the graph of straight line. We know that. fx equal to, so this is the graph of straight line. If fx is ax square plus bx plus c in this format, then we know that y equal to ax square plus bx plus c. This graph is a parabola. You already know from class 10. This graph is a parabola. This is the line. Like this we think. Okay. Then there are few more which you have to understand. Supposing f is a function from R to R and fx is 2. So that means y equal to 2. Now for this equation, if we take values of x and y, x is not present over here in the formula. So even if I keep changing values of x is not here, so y will always remain 2. So for 0 it will be 2, for 1 it will be 2, for minus 1 it will be 2 and so on. Because x is not at all there in this formula. So even if I change the values of x, this will not be affected. So the graph will be like this, x-axis and y-axis. So 1 and minus 1 and then 1 and then 2. So 0 and 2, 1 and 2, minus 1 and 2, then 2 also 2, minus 2 also 2, same thing. The graph will come like this. So we can see graph will be a straight line but a horizontal line parallel to x-axis. So fx equal to 2, it is constant, it will not change if x changes. Value of f will remain constant, always remaining 2. So this type of function is called constant function. In the formula, if x is not coming, then it is called a constant function. And you can see the graph of constant function will be a horizontal line parallel to x-axis. So this way the graph of constant function comes. Fx equal to 2 or fx equal to 3 or fx equal to 0 or fx equal to -1. If in the formula of function x is missing out, only constant is there, that means it is a constant function. And therefore the graph is a horizontal line parallel to x-axis. Please understand. Then if I show you more graphs, then there is a function like modulus function. These are some special functions about which you should know. Modulus function. This function is f is a function from R to R, fx equal to modulus x. Now what will be modulus x? Children, please understand. Modulus x will be x if x greater than or equal to 0, and modulus x will be minus x if x is less than 0. Because modulus x will always give us positive value or 0 value. It will give us always non-negative values, either 0 or positive but not negative. So you already know, children, what is modulus of 3? 3. What is modulus of minus 3? 3. You must have done in your lower classes. Mod of 4 will be 4 and mod of minus 4 will be 4. Like this you have to think. So this is the definition. Modulus x will be x, will x is greater than or equal to 0. That means inside the modulus if number is positive, then remove modulus sign and keep the number. But if x is less than 0, x is a negative number inside modulus, then remove modulus and put minus sign. Remember like this. Children, supposing x is equal to minus 4. So mod of x means mod of minus 4. Means it is 4. Means it is minus 4. Means it is minus of x, because x is minus 4. So modulus x is minus x when x is negative number. Let us take one more, x equal to minus 2. What will be mod x? Mod of minus 2, that is 2. That is minus 2. That is minus of x. Minus 2 is x. So mod x is again minus x when x is a negative number. If x is a positive number, then mod x means mod of 3 means 3 means x. So mod x is x when x is positive. Mod x is x when x is positive. And mod x is minus x when x is negative. This is the definition. Let us see the graph x and y. This is y fx. For 0 answer will be 0, for 1 it will be 1, for 2 it will be 2, for 3 it will be 3, for minus 1 it will be 1. देखो x and y, this is fx and this is x. 1, 2, 3, minus 1, minus 2 and minus 3. 1, 2 and 3. See 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, minus 1 and 1, minus 2 and 2, minus 3 and 3. This is the graph. So this is the graph of modulus function, fx equal to mod x. Please remember. Please pause and copy, children. Please pause and copy the definition of modulus function and its graph. Okay. Then you got signum function. signum function. F is a function from R to R, and fx is 1 when x is positive, it is 0 when x is 0, and it is -1 when x is 0. This way we define the signum function. And in short, we write signum function as SGN. So f is SGN. Signum function in short we write SGN. So that means signum of x is 1 when x is positive. Signum of x is 0 when x is 0. And signum of x is -1 when x is less than 0. We can define this function also like this. Instead of this way, we can write like this also. Fx is equal to modulus of x upon x when x is not 0. And fx is 0 when x is 0. Now see, x not 0 means either x will be greater than 0 or less than 0. When x will be positive, mod x will be x, the x upon x will become 1. So when x will be positive, fx is 1. X is positive, fx is 1. When x will be negative, mod x will be -x. So -x upon x -1. So fx is -1 and x is less than 0. These two formulae are done in the same thing. And how does the graph come of signum function? X-axis, y-axis, here fx or signum x. For 0 the answer is 0, so 0 0 point. For all positive values, answer will be 1. Value of function will be 1. So for 1, 2, 3, 4 positive value of x, this is 1 and this is -1. 1 के लिए 1, 2 के लिए 1, 3 के लिए 1, 4 के लिए 1. For all positive values it will be 1. This point won't be included. Incomplete circle, hollow circle means the point is not included. This point is having coordinates 0, 1. This point is not there in the graph. If this point was a part of the graph, that means 0, 1 point is there on the graph. That means when x is 0, the value of f is 1. That is wrong, because when x is 0, value of function is 0. So when x is 0, f cannot be 1. Therefore this point cannot be there on the graph. When x is -1, -2, -3. When x negative, answer will be -1. So for -1, -1, for -2, -2, the graph goes like this. Again, this point is not included in the graph because the coordinates of this point are 0, -1. This is x and this is fx. If this point is there on the graph, that means when x is 0, fx will be -1. That is wrong, because when x will be 0, fx will be 0, not -1. Therefore, incomplete circle to show it is not included, and dark circle to show it is included. This is the point 0, 0. This is there on the graph, dark circle, because when x is 0, fx is 0. True. When x is 0, fx is 0. Correct. Therefore, this point included, these 2 points not included. This is the shape of the graph for signum function. Please pause and copy, children. Please pause and copy. Now see, children, what will be increasing function and what will be decreasing function. Supposing I take up a function like fx equal to x cube. So if I draw its graph, it will come out like this. You can take some values and you can plot it. Here you will get x and you will get fx on y-axis. If you draw the graph, it will come like this. We have drawn also, it will go like this. So when I go from left side to right side, when I go from left to right, the graph is rising up. The graph is rising. The value is increasing always. As x will increase, x will be on x-axis. If I move from left to right, means the value of x is increasing. When I move from left to right, value of x will increase. See, here there will be -4, here there will be -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let us see what values are coming. X and fx. Minus 4, minus 3, minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. For minus 4 answer will be minus 64, minus 27, minus 8, minus 1, 0, 1, 8, 27, 64. See, as I move from left to right, value is increasing, yes or no? Minus 27 is more than minus 64, minus 8 more than minus 27, minus 1 more than minus 8. As x increases, fx also increases. If this type of function is there, that as x increases, fx also increases, then it is called an increasing function. Please understand. As x will increase, fx also should increase. Or if I go like this, then x will decrease and fx also will decrease. So if I move from left to right, my x increases, fx also increases. But when I move from right to left, x decreases and fx also decreases. So x should increase and fx should increase, or x should decrease and fx should decrease. That means x and fx should move in same direction. Either both should increase or both should decrease. Then such a type of function is called increasing function. Increasing function. And what is the main property of increasing function which will be helpful to us? See, this is the function x and y. Here fx. From y-axis I get the value of function. From x-axis I get the value of variable of the function. Supposing my graph is like this, increasing function. See, it is rising up as I go from left to right. This is number x1 and this is number x2. fx will be obtained from y-axis. This height will tell me value of f. Value of function is got from y-axis. Value of function is got from y-axis. That means the height will give me value of function. Because height will be y-coordinate. Y-coordinate means value of fx. So this height is fx1 and this height is fx2. Now I know a number line, this is more and this is less. That is very clear to me. So I know that x2 is more than x1. What do you think for fx2 and fx1? fx2 and fx1, what do you think? Who is bigger? Who is more? fx2. That means x2 more than x1 means fx2 more than fx1. So if two values of the variable are given to me for an increasing function, two values of variable are given to me, one x1 and x2, such that x2 is more than x1. When I apply the function on both of them, the inequality sign will not change. So whether I apply the function or I remove the function, if I go from here to here, from here to here, when I go, f is removed, only variable is remaining. And when I go from here to here, f is applied. So whether we apply f or we remove f on the variable, the inequality sign will not change for increasing function. For increasing function, this is the property for increasing function. x2 more than x1 will mean fx2 more than fx1. Please copy, children. Please copy. Supposing I have a function like fx equal to 1 upon x and f is a function from supposing n to r, supposing like this. So let us take the values of x and fx. Fx means y. From here we get x and here we get y or fx. Natural numbers, so x can be 1, 2, 3, 4 like this. So when x will be 1, fx will be 1 upon 1. When x will be 2, fx will be half. When x will be 3, fx will be 1 upon 3. Then 1 upon 4 and like that. If I draw the graph of this function, children, it will come out to be like this. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. Let me make it not n but r minus 0. R minus 0 means all the real numbers but not 0. Why? Because if I take f0, then 1 upon 0 won't be defined. So r minus 0 to r I am taking any real number. Anyway, for few real numbers I found out the values. Let us plot them. This is 1, this is 2, and this is 3, this is y, this will be fx here, and there will be x axis over here x. So for 1 answer is 1, for 2 it is half, for 3 it will be 1 by 3, for 4 1 by 4, that means the graph will go like this. And you can see it is, what is happening? Coming down like this. Okay, so the graph will come like this, it will go up to here. For 0 it will become infinity, 1 upon 0 undefined. So the graph is coming like this. So as I move like this, my graph comes down. So it is a decreasing function. When the graph is coming down, it becomes a decreasing function. And for a decreasing function, children, see, if I have got decreasing function like this, x-axis and y-axis. This is one value and this is second value, x1 and x2. This height will be fx1 and this height will be fx2. I can see x2 is more than x1, the number on right will be bigger. So I can see that x2 is more than x1. So what do you think for fx2 and fx1? What do you think? fx2 is smaller, fx1 is bigger, we can see that. So for a decreasing function, x2 more than x1 implies fx2 less than fx1. So if I apply f on both the sides, apply the function, inequality sign changes. So in increasing function, inequality sign will not change. In decreasing function, when you apply the function, inequality sign will change. Please note properly. So for a decreasing function, what is the definition? X will increase, fx will decrease, or x will decrease and fx will increase. That is the definition for a decreasing function. As the value of variable will increase, function will keep coming down, fx will decrease. Or x decreases. If I go like this, x decreases from 4, 3, 2, 1, x is decreasing. The height of the graph rises, fx increases. So this is about increasing function and decreasing function. Please pause and copy, children. Okay, children, now we continue. After studying increasing and decreasing functions, you have to think about what are odd functions and even functions. There is a division like this. Some functions are called odd functions and some are called even. And there are functions which may be neither even nor odd. So we have to understand what is an even function, or when is a function called an even function, or when is a function called an odd function. So children, please remember what is the definition. If f of minus x is equal to f of x, then it is an even function. And if f of minus x is minus fx, then it is an odd function. This is the definition for odd function and even function. F of minus x should be fx. For even function, f of minus x should be minus fx for odd function. Now children, take one example. Supposing I am having fx equal to x square. If f of minus x will be fx, then it will be even function. And if f of minus x is minus fx, it will be odd function. And if f of minus x is neither this nor this, then it will be neither even nor odd. So whenever you want to check whether a function is even or odd, find out f of minus x and check whether it is fx or minus fx. If it is fx, then it is an even function. If it is minus fx, it is an odd function. And if it is neither, then it is neither even nor odd function. So to check whether a function is even or odd, I will find out value of f of minus x. So I find out f of minus x. If f of x is this much, f of minus x will be how much? Wherever there is x, I write minus x. So this becomes minus x whole square, and this is x square, and what is x square? Fx. So see children, f of minus x is fx. So therefore this is an even function. And children, if you draw the graph of y equal to x square, I told you fx is y, it will come out to be like this. This is the x-axis, this is y, it will be like this. So you can see if I place a mirror on y-axis, and if I see from here, if there is a mirror over here, then whatever reflection of this I will see in the mirror, whatever reflection of this I will see in the mirror, it will be exactly overlapping this. Yes or no? Can you see it is symmetric? Yes, it is symmetric about y-axis. So this is an important property of even function. When you draw the graph of even function, it will be symmetric about y-axis. That means whatever graph is here, its reflection you can see on left side of y-axis, and whatever is on left, its reflection you can see on right. This way we say the graph is symmetric about y-axis. Symmetric about y-axis means if I place mirror on y-axis, then whatever reflection I see of this in the mirror, that will be exactly overlapping this. And if I place mirror over here and see from this side, if this is the polished side, then whatever reflection of this I see in the mirror, that will be overlapping this. That is the meaning of saying graph is symmetric about y-axis. Let us take one more. F of x equal to mod x. So what will be f of minus x? That will be mod of minus x. Instead of x there is minus x. So here also instead of x there is minus mod x. Now you know mod of minus x and mod of x, they are same thing. Because mod of minus 7 will be as good as mod of 7, that will be 7. Mod of minus 3 will be as good as mod of 3, and that will be 3. So mod of x and mod of minus x, they are same. So keeping that thing in mind, this thing becomes equal to mod of x, and mod x means fx, like this. So f of minus x is found to be fx. Therefore this function fx equal to mod x, that is an even function. And if I draw the graph of this function, it will come out to be like this, two pairs of rays like this. Again you can see it is symmetric about y-axis. You can take the points and you can check. Supposing fx equal to x square, so you can take some points x and y. For 0 it will be 0. For 1 it will be 1. For minus it will be 1. So I can write for plus minus it will be 1. For plus minus 2 it will be 4. And then you plot these points. Okay, you plot these points, you will get this type of curve. Here also y equal to mod x. If you take some values, for 0 it will be 0. 0 mod is 0. For plus minus 1 it will be 1. For plus minus 2 it will be 2. If you plot these points, you get the graph. Understanding? This type of graph you will get 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. It will be a straight line graph like this. So two examples I gave you for even function. Let us proceed. Supposing I am having third example, fx equal to x cube. So what will be f of minus x? That will be minus x cube, and that is minus fx. X cube is fx. So f of minus x is coming out to be minus fx. Therefore this is an odd function. This is an odd function. If you draw the graph of y equal to x cube, it will come out to be like this. This will be the graph, x-axis and y-axis. If you place a mirror along the line x plus y equal to 0, this is the line x plus y equal to 0. If you place a mirror along this line, then whatever reflection of this you see in the mirror, that will exactly follow this pattern. So therefore, if f is an odd function, then it is symmetric with respect to line x plus y equal to 0. Symmetric with respect to line x plus y equal to 0 means if I keep mirror on the line x plus y equal to 0, and if I see from here, whatever graph is being seen in the reflection, that graph will overlap this region exactly. So we say the graph of odd function is symmetric about x plus y equal to 0, or it is symmetric about origin. We speak like this. Symmetric about origin means symmetric about the line x plus y equal to 0. We can take one more example for odd function. Supposing fx equal to 1 upon x, So what will be f of minus x? This will be this much minus 1 upon x, that is minus fx. So f of minus x is minus fx. So this is a case of odd function. F of minus x is minus fx. So this is an odd function. If you take values of x and y and try to draw the graph, children, it will come out to be like this. This will come and this will come. Again, if you draw a line x plus y equal to 0, okay, so you can see reflection of this will be this only in the mirror that you can make out. So graph of odd function is symmetric about the line x plus y equal to 0, and graph of even function is symmetric about the line y axis. So f of minus x should be fx for even function, and for odd function f of minus x should be minus fx. So like this odd function and even function. Please pause and copy, children. See, children, some functions have got one more peculiar type of property, and they are called periodic functions. And what peculiar property they have got, we will discuss now. So some functions are periodic functions if they possess a special type of property. What is the property? Let us see. Before that, let us consider one example. F is a function from n to z, and fx equal to minus 1 raised to x. So children, tell me what will be f of 1. Put x as 1. So minus 1 raised to 1, that will be minus 1. What will be f of 2? F of 2, instead of x there is 2. So minus 1 raised to 2, how much? 1. What will be f of 3? X is equal to 3. So put x as 3, minus 1 raised to 3, that will be minus 1. What about f4? Minus 1 raised to 4, that will be 1. And like that now you understand, f5 will be minus 1, f7 will be minus 1, f of 9 will be minus 1. Now you can make out easily. Okay. Now, children, if I tell you that f of x is f of x plus 2 for all, this is the symbol for every, for all x and x plus 2, this and this from the domain of the function. This is the domain belonging to set of natural numbers. For all x and x plus 2 from the set of natural numbers, means you have to take such values of x. We have to take such values of x such that x and x plus 2 are natural numbers. Means I should not take x as 0, because then 0 will not belong to set of natural numbers. Only such values of x are to be picked up such that this x and x plus 2, they both belong to the domain of function which is a set of natural numbers. Let us see whether this property is correct or not. If I choose x as 1, so f1 is equal to f3. Is it correct? 1 plus 2. Is f1 equal to f3? Just check. Yes, it is right. Is f2 equal to, if I take x as 2, because for every x in the set of natural numbers, every x means x can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have to check for all. What about f2? If I take x as 2 and this is f4, is it correct? Is it correct? Yes, this is also correct. Is f3 equal to f5? f3 and 3 plus 2 f5, are they equal? Just see. f3 and f are they equal? Yes, they are equal. Both are equal to minus 1. What about f4? X is 4 and this will become 6. Is f4 equal to x6? Is it correct? Yes, you can see both are equal to 1. Like that, check for different values of x. You know it will always be correct. Now, will this also be equal to f of x plus 4? F of x and f of x plus 4. So when x is 1, f of x plus 4 will become what? F of 5. Yes or no? 1 plus 4. X is 1. So this will become f5. Are f1, f5 equal? Yes, they are equal. For fx and f of x plus 4, x is 2. So what is this? F of 6. Are they equal? Are f2, f4, f6 equal? Yes, they are equal. That is correct. When x becomes 3, so this will become f7. Are f3, f5, f7 equal? Yes, they are equal. And later you can check. So this will also be equal to f of x plus 6, that you can check. That will also be equal to f of x plus 8 and like this. So f of x is f of x plus 2, x plus 4, x plus 6, x plus 8. These 4, 6 and 8 are what? Multiples of 2. 4, 6, 8 and then 10, then 12, these all are multiples of 2. So I will say f of x is f of x plus 2p or other 2n, where n is a natural number. If n is 1, then f of x is f of x plus 2. If n is 2, it will be f of x plus 4, like this. F of x is f of x plus 6, f of x is f of x plus 8 by taking n as 1, 2, 3, 4. They all are equal, we know that. Now, let me know whether they are also equal to f of x minus 2. F of x, is it equal to f of x minus 2? Now you have to choose x such that x and x minus 2 are natural numbers. So don't take x as 1 because then 1 minus 2 will be minus 1. This won't be a natural number. So if I want to check f of x, I think like this. I want to check f of x is f of x minus 2. Take x as 3. So f of 3 is equal to f of 1. Is it correct? Yes. Take x as 4. Is f of 4 is equal to f of 2, 4 minus 2? Yes, they are correct. They are equal. So like that f of x will be f of x minus 2. That will also be equal to f of x minus 4. Now let us take, we can't take this because x you have taken 3, so 3 minus 4 will be negative. So let us take x as 5. If we take x as 5, then f5 is equal to f3 is equal to f1. Is it correct? Yes. Take x as 6, f of 6 equal to f of 4, f of 2. Is it equal? Yes, f6, f4, f2 are equal. That means f of x plus 2, f of x plus 4, f of x plus 6, f of x plus 8, f of x minus 2, f of x minus 4. That means multiples of 2 can be added to x or they can be subtracted from 2. So I will write f of x plus 2n where n belongs to z. So if z is minus 1, so this will become x minus 2. So f of x equal to f of x minus 2. That is correct. If I take n as minus 2, so this will become fx equal to f of x minus 4. 2 into minus 2 minus 4. So f of x will be f of x minus 4. That is also correct. So f of x is equal to f of x plus 2 and n belongs to z. If that is the property, of the function, of this function, then this number 2, I think f of x can be f of x plus 2, x plus 4, x plus 6. I write again for you. F of x was f of x plus minus 2, f of x plus minus 4, f of x plus minus 6 and like that. So, if this type of property is there with the function f of x equal to f of x plus 2n, so just as multiples of 2 are there, or there can be multiples of 3, or there can be multiples of 4, or multiples of 1, or multiples of half, whatever. If this type of property is there with the function, then it is called a periodic function. It is called a periodic function. So in short, f of x will be f of x plus pn, where n will be belonging to z. Just like f of x plus 2n, in general it will be x plus pn, where n belongs to z. Here there are multiples of 2, then there can be multiples of 3 in some function, or there can be multiples of 4 or half or 3 by 2, whatever. In general, f of x should be f of x plus pn. Here p is in this function too. If f of x is f of x plus pn, if this type of property is there with the function, then such a function is called a periodic function. Please pause and copy. I'll give you one more example. Please pause and copy. Please pause and copy, Chandra. See children, supposing f is a function from n to n union 0. N union 0 means all the natural numbers and 0. Means you can write w, the set of whole numbers. And fx, now look at the formula nicely. Remainder obtained on dividing x by 3. So whatever x I pick up from n, x will be picked up from here. Fx, x has to be picked up from here, domain. So I have to check the value of function will be obtained as remainder that we get when we divide x by 3. So we will pick up x from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Each time we will divide by 3, and whatever answer we get as remainder, that will be the value of function. To understand how we are going to get the value of function, he says fx is what? It is the remainder obtained on dividing x by 3. You take up x from here, natural numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like this. Divide your x by 3. Whatever remainder you get, that will be the value of the function. Remainder that you get when you divide x by 3, that is your answer, the value of function. So children, can you tell me what will be f4? If I divide 4 by 3, what will be the remainder? Think. I am dividing 4 by 3. So 3 ones are 3. What is the remainder? 1. This is the quotient. This is the remainder. You have done Euclid's lessons in 10th standard. F4 will be 1. So when x is 4, we divide 4 by 3. And what is the remainder? 1. The answer is 1. Because fx is what? Remainder obtained on dividing x by 3. So you divide x by 3. What is the remainder? 1. So this is your answer. This is the value of the function. What about f5? Divide 5 by 3. So 3 ones are 3, remainder will be 2. What about f6? Divide 6 by 3. Divide 6 by 3. 3 2s are 6. What is the remainder? 0. So f6 is 0. What about f7? 3 2s are 6, remainder will be 1. What about f8? 3 2s are 6, 2 will be the remainder. What about f9? 3 3s are 9, no remainder. What about f10? 3 3s are 9, 1 is the remainder. What about f11? 3 3s are 9, 2 is the remainder. What about f12? 3 4s are 12, no remainder. What about, right over here, children, what about f1? Because we have to begin from 1. If I divide 1 by 3, what is the remainder? If I divide 1 by 3, 3 will not go, so 3 zeros are 0. Remainder is 1. 3 will not go in 1, 3 will go in 1 how many times? 0 times, so 3 zeros are 0, remainder is 1. f1 is 1. What about f2? Again, divide 2 by 3, 3 will not go into 0 times, remainder is 2. So f2 will be 2. What about f3? 3 ones are 3, remainder 0. Like this I have found out. Children, do you observe that f of x will be f of x plus 3? Can you see that? If I take x as 1, is f1 equal to f4? Yes. Is f2 equal to f5? f2 equal to f5. Is f2 equal to f5? Yes, both are true. Is f3 equal to f6? Is it happening? f3 and f6, yes, they are equal. Is f7 equal to f10? Yes, both are 1. Is f8 equal to f11? f8 and f11 both are equal. So I can see f of x is f of x plus 3 for any x. Is it also equal to f of x plus 6? So when I take x as 1, the f1 should be f7. f1 and f7, they are equal. Wow. If I take 2, so 2 and 8, f2 and f8, f2 and f8, yes, they will come out to equal always. It will also be equal to f of x plus 9. It will also be equal to f of x plus 12 and so on. Means multiples of 3. And it will also be equal to f of x minus 3. fx equal to f of x minus 3. Take x as 4, so f4 equal to f1, correct? f5 equal to f2, correct? You can check. f6 equal to f3, correct? And that will also be equal to f of x minus 6, that will also be equal to f of x minus 9 and so on. That means I can say that fx equal to f of x plus minus 3, x plus minus 6, f of x plus minus 9 and so on. That means I will say f of x equal to f of x plus 3n, where n belongs to z. Just like over there, f of x was f of x plus 2n. Just turn your pages and see. There we wrote f of x is f of x plus 2n, n belongs to z. Here f of x is f of x plus 3n, where n belongs to z. So again, this is a periodic function. Because f of x is coming out to be f of x plus pn, where n belongs to z. What is p over here? 3. What was p in that example? 2. So children, we say 3 is the period of this function and 2 is the period of that function. If f of x plus pn is fx, f of x should be f of x plus pn. Then p, the smallest positive integer number, smallest positive number. P should be positive. P should be positive. I am picking up p as 3 and 2. P should be positive. It should be the smallest positive number. That is called the fundamental period of the function p. The smallest value of p. What is p possible? P possible is plus minus 3, plus minus 6, plus minus 9, like this. And a pn means what? Plus minus 3, plus minus 6, plus minus 9. Out of all these values, which is the smallest possible value? Plus 3. Therefore, 3 is the period of this function. Over there, f of x was f of x plus minus 2. Let me repeat. We saw over there f of x plus minus 2 equal to f of x plus minus 4, and like that. So p can be plus minus 2, plus minus 4, plus minus 6, plus minus 8, like this. What is the smallest positive value available? 2. Therefore, p equal to 2 is the fundamental period of that function, the previous function. Here, 3 is the fundamental period of the given function, this one. So children, if the functions are having this property that f of x is equal to f of x plus pn, where p is the smallest positive real number, possible, then we say the function is a periodic function, and p, the smallest real positive number, is called its fundamental period. That is the point. Please pause and copy, children. Then children, you need to know about integer part of a number and fractional part of a number. See children, you have to understand that every real number is made up of two parts. Integer part we write in square brackets like this, and fractional part we write in braces like this. So every number is made up of two parts. One is the integer part and one is the fractional part. Now please remember, supposing I am given a number 3.2, this can be written as 3 plus 0.2. So 3 is the integer part and 0.2 is the fractional part. If I am given a number like 5.9, so 5 is the integer part and 0.9 is the fractional part. If I am given a number like 5.9999, then 5 will be the integer part and 0.9999 will be the fractional part. If there is a number like 3, so 3 is the integer part and 0 is the fractional part. And if I am given a number minus 1.2, now watch carefully. Don't think minus 1 minus 0.2, no, because fractional part can never be negative. Fractional part can never be negative. So we cannot write minus 1 and minus 0.2. Minus 0.2 will be negative. So what do? We write it as minus 2 plus 0.8. Please take care. So minus 1.2 as integer part minus 2 and fractional part 0.8. If I am having minus 5.3, so I cannot write minus 5 minus 0.3. I will write it as minus 6 plus 0.7. This is the integer part, this is the fractional part. If I am having minus 0.3 or minus 0.6 supposing, so this will be minus 1 plus 0.4. If I am having minus 4.7, that will be minus 5 plus 0.3. So now children, please understand, that is okay, I told you how to do it. If you want to find integer part of any number, how to get it? I am showing you a trick now. How to get integer part. So you draw a number line like this. Your first number is 3.2. It is between 3 and 4. This is the number 3.2. So whenever you want to find integer part of any number, always move to the left. And the first integer that comes your way is your answer. So 3.2 will be between 3 and 4. Its integer part will be 3. And the remaining part will be the fractional part. So 3.2 you write as 3, that is the integer part, and plus whatever is remaining. For 5.9, 5.9 will be somewhere over here, 5 and 6. 5.9 is here. So integer part will be 5. You can see that. We have written for 5.9, integer part is 5. Next number is 5. Very close to 6, but less than 6. 5.99, but it is not 6. So it is on left side of 6. So integer part is again, you move to the left, whatever integer comes your way, that is your answer. If you are 3, that means you are standing here itself, on the integer itself. If you are at the integer itself, then there is no need to move, that itself is your answer. That itself is the integer part. Integer itself is an integer, there is no fraction involved. So for 3, answer will be 3. For 2, it will be 2. For 0, it will be 0. For minus 5, it will be minus 5. For minus 6, it will be minus 6, like that. Then minus 1.2, see this is somewhere over here, 0, then minus 1, then minus 2. I push like this. Minus 1.2 will be somewhere over here. Move to the left, minus 2. For minus 1.2, answer should be minus 2. Very true. Then minus 5.3. This will be minus 4, this will be minus 5, this will be minus 5.3 somewhere here. Move to the left, what is the answer? Minus 6. So we write minus 5.3 is equal to minus 6 plus we have to do that. Because integer part is minus 6. And plus what? Plus 0.7 naturally. So this plus this will become this. So 0.7 is the fractional part. Then for minus 0.6 will be here. Integer part minus 1. So minus 0.6 will be minus 1, and then I have to add naturally plus 0.4 to equalize. Minus 0.6 will be what? Minus 1 plus 0.4. So fractional part becomes 0.4. Minus 4.7. Minus 4.7 is here. Integer part minus 5. So minus 4.7 is minus 5. Then I have to add something plus 0.3. These are the fractional parts, is the integer part. Like this we think. This is the integer part and this is the fractional part and this is x. Like this you think. So how to get integer part of any number? Do you understand? Wherever you are standing on the number line, move to the left. The first integer that comes your way is the trick to get the integer part. Explanation is this. So how to get integer part of any number and how to get fractional part of any number, that I told you. Please pause and copy, children. Please pause and copy. Okay. So children, please remember few things we need to understand. If there is a number line like this, 0, 1, 2, 3, minus 1 and minus 2. If integer part of any number is 4, supposing 2, then what can be x? So you have to think what are those numbers whose integer part can be 2? Which are those numbers whose integer part can be 2? You know 2 has got integer part 2 and all these numbers more than 2 and less than 3, their integer part will be 2 because whatever number I take, I have to move to the left, my answer will be 2. So if integer x is 2, then x will belong to 2 to 3. Do you understand this point? X can be any number from here. All these numbers will have integer part too. If I say integer part of x is 1, what are those numbers whose integer part is 1? All these numbers. All these numbers, including 1 but not 2. So I will write x belongs to 1 to 2. Or I can say 2 less than equal to x less than 3. Here I can say 1 less than equal to x less than 2. That is okay. If integer part of x is 0, which are the numbers whose integer part is 0? All these numbers. So x belongs to 0 to 1. So 0 less than equal to x less than 1. Yes? So if integer part of x is 2, x lies between 2 and 3. If integer part of x is 1, x will be between 1 and 2. If integer part of x is 0, x lies between 0 and 1, like this we think. So again if I write over here, integer part of x is 2, this thing I am writing again. So 2 means what? Integer part of x less than equal to x less than integer part of x plus 1. Can I write like this? 3 means 2 plus 1. 2 means what? Integer part of x. Integer part of x is 2. So instead of 2 I write integer part of x. That is okay. And 3 I write as 2 plus 1. 2 means integer part of x. When integer part of x was 1, so this was the thing. 1 means what? Integer part of x less than equal to x less than integer of x plus 1. And similarly when integer part of x was 0, so integer x, 0 means integer part of x less than equal to x less than integer part of x plus 1. 0 plus 1, 0 means integer part of x. So in general, remember the property, child, that integer part of x less than equal to x less than equal to integer part of x plus 1. This is true for every x. Please remember. Please remember. After I get this property, subtract integer x from all. Subtract integer x from all. So integer x minus integer x less than equal to x minus integer x. Oh, sorry, only less than. Sorry. Less than integer x plus 1 minus integer part of x. I have taken this minus integer x minus integer x minus integer x. This becomes 0 less than equal to x minus integer x less than 1. And children, we know x is integer part of x plus fractional part of x. So x minus integer x will be fractional part of x. So this is fractional part of x. Therefore 0 less than equal to fractional part of x less than 1. So fractional part of x is always between 0 and 1, including 0 but not 1. So two important properties we have seen. Fractional part of x will be always between 0 and 1, not 1 but 0 it can be included. And x will be always between integer x and integer x plus 1, please understand. Please pause and copy, children. Please pause and copy. Let us see few more properties. Please pause and copy. See, children, if you take x as 2.3, then what about integer of x plus integer of minus x? This will be integer of 2.3, that will be 2. This will be integer of minus 2.3, that will be minus 3. And that will be minus 1. Please understand, integer part of 2.3, 2. Integer part of minus 2.3, minus 3, that is 1. So, if x is 4.1, therefore integer of x plus integer of minus x. 4.1 integer 4, minus 4.1 will become minus 5 and that is again minus 1. So when x is in fractions, whenever, if x is not an integer, if x is not an integer, then integer of x plus integer of minus x will be always minus 1. This property we conclude by examples. If x is 2, supposing integer, therefore integer of x plus integer of minus x. Integer part of 2, that will be 2. Integer part of minus 2, that will be 0. If x is minus 3, so integer of x plus integer of minus x. Minus 3 integer will be minus 3. Minus 3, so 3, that will be 3, and that will be 0. So we conclude that if x belongs to z, then integer x plus integer minus x will be 0. This property we get. Like this. Come to fractional part. If x is 3.2, then fractional part of x plus fractional part of minus x. See, 3.2 fractional part will be 0.2. Minus 3.2. Minus 3.2 fractional part will be 0.8. Because for minus 3.2 integer part will be minus 4 and then plus 0.8. Please do it and check. So this will be 1. If I take x as minus 1.2, say minus 1.6 supposing, so fractional part of x plus fractional part of minus x. Fractional part of minus 1.6, that will be 0.4. Fractional part of minus x means fractional part of 1.6, that will be 0.6, and that will be 1 again. So please remember, if x is not an integer, decimals or fractions, then fractional part of x plus fractional part of minus x is always 1. Important properties I am telling you. Useful to us. If x is 2, then fractional part of x plus fractional part of minus x. 2 and minus 2, both are integers. Fractional part will be 0. So 0 plus 0, that will be 0. If x is 4, so fractional part of x plus fractional part of minus x. Minus 4 and 4, both integers, fractional part are 0. So 0 plus 0 equal to 0. Therefore we take that if x belongs to z, these both are integers, then fractional part of x plus fractional part of minus x will be 0. This important property we get. And last property, children, please remember I am telling you and we close the topic. If at least one out of x or y belongs to z, two numbers are there, x and y. If at least one is an integer, then integer of x plus y can be written as integer of x plus integer of y. At least one should be integer. At least one should be integer, then only that can be split up, otherwise they cannot be split up like this. Always we cannot write integer of x plus y will be integer x plus integer y. We can write this only when at least one out of x and y is integer, only then we can write. I would have liked to teach you graphs of integer part and fractional part function, but then it will become very long, children. You can see detailed videos I have made topic wise. There you will get detailed knowledge. This video is meant for quick revision of the concepts of entire chapter function. Thank you and God bless you, children.